gun, and then he got Catcher in the Rye out of his pocket and started to read it. Right. Mind control. But what happened was, Perdomo is said to have said to this Joseph Meny, take the gun and just get rid of it. And as you say, Desiree, it was taken down an elevator shaft or something and taken down into the basement. First fact is, that's messing with police evidence. Who's to say that the gun that was taken down into the basement is the same gun that they gave to the police? Another thing is, seeing that Jose Perdomo was a quote-unquote security guard, why didn't he apprehend Mark David Chapman? Knowing that the gun had been taken away from him, why didn't he try to stop? Why didn't he try to at least apprehend him, get physical with him? Why didn't he just leave him there to read the book?
There's some accounts that say Perdomo turned to Chapman and said, go on, get out of here. Why are you still standing here? Go on. Encouraging the suspect to leave the scene.
Thank God he was on security that night, eh?
Which then...
It's just so weird.
Which then has some researchers questioning whether that Perdomo was his handler and he wanted Chapman to go to get out of there. Basically,
when he's supposed to have said to Chapman, do you know what you've done? Some seem to think that Perdomo was his handler and he wants to check that Chapman is going to give that story to the cops. So when he says, I've just shot John Lennon, he's right on script.
Yeah, he's thinking, phew. Perdomo's thinking, phew. Oh, all right, we're on the right road here. But, we're never going to really know what happened. And if the trajectories and everything match up with the wounds of John Lennon and so on and so forth, because apparently the full autopsy report, you can get the death certificate, if I'm not mistaken, you can find that online, but you will not get the full autopsy report. And I know this because there's an author by the name of Salvador Astucia, who is the author of Rethinking Lennon's Assassination. And you can actually get this book online. You can read it online. And he tried to get the full autopsy report in 2003, 2002, 2003, and he was denied it. And he was denied it by the Director of Public Affairs at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, which is interesting because the Chief Medical Examiner back in 1980 was a man by the name of Dr. Elliot M. Gross. You don't hear a lot about this guy, and I'm surprised that no one's really looked into him. So I've done a little bit of digging, okay? So this is the guy, effectively, who, if I'm not wrong, who would have been effectively the boss of all the coroners in New York back in 1980. This was his job back in 1980. He was this state examiner, chief medical examiner. Now, in 1985, I've got a news story here with the headline that reads, Dr. Gross accused of incompetence by state agency. The State Health Department, it says here in this report, after a 6-month investigation, has lodged 12 charges of gross incompetence or negligence against Dr. Elliot M. Gross, the city's chief medical examiner in New York. He was charged with professional misconduct in the handling of a series of cases, including deaths of people in police custody. And then in 1987, a couple of years after that, the mayor at the time of New York sacked him. He fired this Dr. Elliot M. Gross after allegations, and I'm quoting here from another news story, after allegations that his office may have altered autopsies to cover up police misconduct. And again, reading from this article, one such example was the case of a Michael Stewart in 1983 who died after being arrested by police. According to the official report, he lost consciousness after he became violent and had to be subdued by officers. He was automatically sent to a nearby hospital and he died there 13 days later, never regaining consciousness. Gross ruled in his report of the death that Stewart had succumbed to a cardiac arrest leading to his death. However, a physician who witnessed the autopsy on behalf of Stewart's family concluded that he'd been strangled during his struggle with the police who arrested him. So, yeah. And then what happened in 1990? So fast forward 2-3 years later, those charges were dropped against Gross. They actually dropped those allegations against him, so he was kind of free of that. But as it was the New York Times newspaper that initially caught on to Gross and exposed these charges and these allegations that then became, charges. And according to a New York Times article, when Gross was sacked from his job, he left, and this I'm quoting again here from another article, he left behind an office in a state of chaos. An official report stated that the medical examiner's office, Gross's office, was plagued by, and I quote, thefts of gold teeth from bodies, and that bodies were frequently left in hallways because of a lingering storage problem. The report added other grisly details. For example, the morgue was forced to dispose of tons of accumulated body parts and blood-oozing storage cabinets. There were bloody footprints of morgue workers leading from improperly stored specimens, areas infested with rats and cockroaches, and body parts being sent for incineration in conventional black plastic bags. So
Jimmy Savile would have been at home there, wouldn't he?
Jeez.
He'd have loved to have worked there.
If there is anywhere you need a face mask,
horrible.
You know what I mean? He lost his job, his New York medical examiner's job, and they dropped those charges, but it was too late by then. And he got a job. He got another job as a medical examiner in New Jersey, and also as a part-time assistant medical examiner for Atlantic County. And everything was going okay until 1998, and the case of Ellen Andros, who was the 31-year-old wife of a police officer. And what happened was she died, and it was said that her husband, her cop husband, was arrested because it was claimed that he was drunk and he strangled her. And Gross put that down in his report. He put that she died of strangulation. But another pathologist took a look at the body, and he discovered that no, she'd actually died of spontaneous coronary artery dissection, which is a rare condition. But as the pathologist stated at the time, back in 1998 or 1999, whenever it happened, yes, a rare condition, but Gross should have noticed it. So he got sacked again. In 2002. So that's the guy that was in charge of John Lennon's body at the time.
There is something we should get into the conversation, because there's probably people listening that will be screaming at us to cover it. And this is the idea that in some way John's assassination didn't actually take place and was faked. So this has been put forward by Miles Mathis, who claims this kind of thing a lot. And there are some other researchers that seem to think that the whole thing was a hoax. It was a put-up job and John never actually died. We should just address this, I guess. Any thoughts on this way of thinking?
I'll address it quickly. I don't know how much weight I put into it, honestly, but it's an interesting subject to go over, I suppose. But yeah, so the theory put forth by a few people is that this was all fake and a cover-up, and John Lennon is, living happily in seclusion in Canada or somewhere else of his choosing, I suppose. And one of the more significant things for me with that theory is almost everybody who saw John that night, from the police officers who put him into their squad car to the doctors that worked on him and the nurses that were there that evening, none of them seemed to recognize this person as John Lennon. None of them seemed to realize that it was actually John Lennon until his IDs were found in his clothes at the hospital, for example. And they're, oh, wow, this is John Lennon, kind of thing. And so I guess in that sense, that kind of does raise the case that, okay, possibly something more to this was going on. But I don't know how much more we should get into that or not.
It's crazy because there's a theory that Paul McCartney is really dead, but he's pretending to be alive. And
right,
John Lennon's really alive, but he's pretending to be dead.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just echo you there, Desiree. Yeah, that was Dr. Halloran, the doctor I mentioned earlier. He said when John Lennon, quote unquote, John Lennon, question mark in brackets, was when they were trying to resuscitate him. Yeah, one of the nurses said, "Hey, that looks like John Lennon," and Dr. Halloran is quoted as saying, "No, that's not John Lennon." And as you say, it's only when they found his wallet and the ID and everything. But you know, if and there was a policeman as well, William Joseph Gamble. I think I mentioned him before. He said, and I quote, he'd lost so much blood. John Lennon had lost so much blood when he saw him that he was unrecognizable. I mean, you can take that in any way, which way you want, but I mean, you could say with the wallet. I mean, if you support this idea that it wasn't John Lennon, you could say that the wallet had been planted on him.
Sure.
I mean, you know, you see, I don't.
If it was all planned ahead of time, they could have planned all of that. You know what I mean? It's
that's the thing.
You know, so
it's a bit of an elaborate kind of fix.
There's also a theory that Chapman didn't really go to jail. He did the odd interview that makes it appear like he's in jail, but really, you know, he never did, and he's just out there somewhere. That's another extension to that.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, if no one's read the Miles Mathis article, go take a look and see what you think. I'm not convinced that he puts forward the thesis or the theory, if you like, that the guy that is now going around as a so-called John Lennon lookalike act, an entertainer by the name of Mark Stacer, is actually John Lennon. But I've looked at the pictures of Mark Stacer, this John Lennon professional lookalike act. He does not look like John Lennon to me. Maybe it's just the way I perceive things, but to me, he does not look like he's passing himself off as that he's actually the John Lennon, the real John Lennon. You know, Miles Mathis sees it like that, but I can't see it myself. The only other thing that I would say makes me wonder whether it was all faked is the actual picture of John Lennon's dead body. Now, if anyone's gone see, if you look at the picture of John Lennon's dead body, it just does not look like. Doesn't look real. It looks like it's been photoshopped or it's been.
It looks like it's wax.
It looks like it's wax. Yeah, the face part looks real, like the nose and the eyes and the hair. But when it gets to the ears and the neck, it kind of looks like it's a rubber mask that's not been fastened properly, and it's like splayed out. It's like, you know what I mean? Like you say, it's almost like a wax model. And why have they got the black bag right up to his neck? You can't see the body. It doesn't look real.
That's
you have
very
to go
true.
and see it. So,
and especially with what you just came out with the medical examiner and all of his kind of shady things, you know, I've heard that his body was kind of purposely left in the hallway so that people could take pictures, you know, kind of thing, you know, instead of being respectful with it and, you know, closing up the body bag and putting him where he's supposed to be, you know, he was just kind of put off to the side there for a minute with his head revealed, you know, like stuff like who would do that? I mean, I guess if you have a shady medical examiner and he's making, you know, 10,000 by letting somebody take a picture of that or whatever. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, why would anyone just leave him sitting out there, you know, in a body bag, half exposed after he's been pronounced dead? And it's just weird stuff. So, yeah.
We've got the fact that this took place in the Dakota building as well, and we've mentioned some of the really strange connections between the Dakota and Rosemary's Baby and Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate and Manson. Those connections just go on forever, so it's a very auspicious setting, isn't it?
Yes, all things that we've already discussed on other episodes. So
indeed,
that's definitely something I go back to. I would like to. I feel like we kind of skipped over a couple of things that I'd really like to go back and kind of refresh a little bit about. First and foremost, I think the day of the actual shooting that took place. You know, as we had mentioned, there was only a couple of witnesses there, but one thing that is never, I think I'm the only person that I've ever noticed to bring up this question. Is
I know what you're going to say. Yeah, you are definitely.
And it's like, so to me, it is so obvious and blaring that I can't believe that nobody has ever discussed this before. But so I can't be the only one. But anyhow, John and Yoko were coming back from the recording that evening at the record plant, which is all the way across town, right? So they supposedly are coming back in their limo or a limo that was supplied to them from the record plant. Nobody's really sure. I can't find that information, but it does appear that they came back in a limo regardless. And the limo pulls up and lets them out on the street, which first of all is very odd because he could have pulled up to the secure exit of the Dakota archway there and let them out there, they would have been completely secure.